when I was taking notes for my first class, it was contracts. I noticed right away. I was like, I don't even know how to take notes anymore. Like Ted said, I'm not a traditional law student. I hadn't been in school in over 4 years, and so I
Oh yeah, I did 4 years undergrad. This is how I studied. I'm gonna apply the same technique. Well, that's not gonna work in law school. It's like you're drinking water through a fire hydrant. It's completely different. And this is the importance of the podcast.
but most people, are on social media or maybe some sort of blogs. I think a lot of the information for law school is like on the deep dark web. I think that's why Reddit is so big for.
Welcome to Bar None, the podcast that cuts through the casebook and classroom chatter to bring you real talk about law school and the legal world and beyond it. I'm your co-host, Ted Delsima, and joined with me, as always, is
Adan Ordoñez. Glad to be here, man.
Hey, man, what's up? What's up? And you know this podcast, each and every week, we sit down with professors, partners, lawyers, and law insiders to break down what actually matters. This podcast has no fluff, no filters, and no BS. Whether you're 1L, a rising associate, or just law curious, this is the space where honesty meets the law. Because here we know the bar is high, but there's none of the usual pretense. So this is kind of weird, this is episode one, podcast one, inception, the great start of it all. And I think to give our listeners some understanding to what the other episodes are going to be like and what essentially birthed the Bar None podcast, I think you should tell them how we met. How did we meet, Adan?
Yeah. So funny enough, the University of Miami, where I was attending at the time, this was about a year ago. They had actually less than a year ago. It was last semester, but they had a mock interview program, and in the job seeking process for job interviews are one of the most, I wouldn't say challenging, but just intimidating things for a law student to do. And so the University of Miami was good to us. They offered these mock interviews, and so I signed up for one, just to sharpen up my interview skills. And I mean, it's almost like it happened, by chance, like there's something with the universe. And I got paired up with you, and I had no idea. I mean, I had no idea who you were. I got a brief bio, so I, studied up so I could do well in the interview. And then we did the interview. It went very well. And, at the end, you start asking me questions about, the different things that I've done in the past. And you were particularly interested in an app that I was working on, a web app for law school, to study for law school, basically. And then we started talking about it offline, and, we became friends, we became partners. And now we're here shooting a podcast. So it's crazy how the world works sometimes.
It is. And Adan, I'll say I was very impressed. And to give you listeners some background, and there's going to be a later episode where we really delve deeper into not only my background as a practitioner of law in practicing now, going on 4.5 years, but also Adan's background, because he's not a traditional law student. He worked professionally. He also played professional baseball. So there's a lot going on there. But for the sake of this episode, I was definitely impressed by his resume. You see it a lot. I've partnered with the University of Miami quite a few times to help students, sharpen their interview skills. And I was very impressed because not only was he going through the rigors of 1L year and first semester, and he was doing well. I saw his GPA, top 5% of his class. He's doing well, but he's also developing an app. He's also developed other businesses. He's also helping the family business. I was definitely impressed. And I think I texted you or called you offline. I was like, man, I'd love to meet and just maybe get a coffee or something and learn more about you. And the rest is history. So Adan, what is this app that you've been working through, and this app that essentially you've developed and kind of gave you like the leg up your first semester of law school? What is the app?
Yeah. So basically, the app is called LawBandit, and it all started with, well, I'm kind of a tech geek nerd, whatever you want to call it. When in my previous job in 2020, I did a little bit of programming, and so I got the bug of wanting to create little web apps. And so when I was taking notes for my first class, it was contracts. I noticed right away, I was like, I don't even know how to take notes anymore. Like Ted said, I'm not a traditional law student. I hadn't been in school in over 4 years. And so and when I was in school, to be frank, I didn't really take notes. I was more focused on playing baseball. But I noticed that I just didn't know how to take notes. I wasn't sure how to go about it, and I knew that there were a lot of tools out there and a lot of options. And so the first month of law school, I just kind of started tinkering with different note taking tools. I tinkered with Evernote, I tinkered with OneNote, I tinkered with just Google Docs. And I found myself going through a lot of different windows and, maybe going to ChatGPT, going to Google, going to Perplexity, there's just a lot of new information coming my way, legal
Oh yeah.
jargon, legal concepts, well, black letter law. And so I did not know what I was doing, and I needed a way to organize it. And so the way my brain works is like, okay, let me create maybe make something so that I can study better. And I started toying around with a few taking interfaces from note taking apps and just kind of copying them to my own software, but integrating them with different AI tools, which is pretty easy now with the different APIs that are available. Not to get too technical, but
Yeah, yeah. Adan, you're definitely, and I'll say this to all our listeners, you're definitely sharper, smarter, and your brain works in a wonderful way and it's very unique. And to synthesize everything, Adan just realized, you know what? There's a bunch of note-taking tools. None of them are really doing what I need for law school. So I'm going to create my own, right? I mean, like I'm going to create
yeah,
LawBandit, which which is crazy to me, right? Because meanwhile, my first year, my first semester, I'm stressing over contracts. I was like, well, he wrote it down on a napkin. Is that a contract? They were at a bar. I don't know. What was the consideration? Like I'm freaking out. And Adon's like, hey, I'm gonna just create an app that makes note taking easier and better. So you see the world apart. And I think that's where Law Bandit was born. And you created this app, Adon. Did you actually use it your first semester? What was the
oh my
experience like?
gosh. Yeah, I mean, I used it every single day. And the fun part was that I was able, as I realized when finals came up, I realized I had to start making outlines. So then I created a feature to create outlines. There's a few other features I just, I tried out and then they didn't work how I wanted them to. So I discarded them. But yeah, it's been kind of shaped by my law school experience and other students' law school experiences. I've gotten feedback from different users. And so it's me and one of my good friends, Manuel. So we work on the app together and kind of do the technical side. But yeah, I used it. I still use it. I'm doing some law review assignments right now, and I'm using it to complete my law review assignment. So I think it's a very good tool. But Ted, one of the things that I think when coming into law school, you just don't know anything as a 1L.
Yeah, for sure.
And even as a 2L, there's just a lot of things that you don't know. And it's one of the reasons why I'm glad that we're doing this podcast, because the information that is out there, you almost have to research for it, kind of like you do researching a case or when you're writing a motion, trying to see what cases to use.
Yeah.
Um, I just think there's not like that accessibility that's easy for people who are going into law school. And so you don't really know what to expect, So maybe, especially as law students, people that want to be prepared, most law students, they want to be prepared, they want to read up. There's just nothing really to read up or to prepare when you're coming in that's easily accessible, especially in the modern world where, there's a lot of information out there. But most people, are on social media or maybe some sort of blogs. I think a lot of the information for law school is like on the deep dark web. I think that's why Reddit is so big for for law students. But we wanted to make it more accessible with this podcast.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important because the podcast, which you'll see through our episodes, deals with if you're a 1L, if you're a rising associate, or you're just law curious, like you said, you don't know, right? You're coming to this new form of education. You think maybe, oh yeah, I did 4 years undergrad. This is how I studied. I'm gonna apply the same technique. Well, that's not gonna work in law school. It's like you're drinking water through a fire hydrant. It's completely different. And this is the importance of the podcast. So this podcast throughout the series, we're just gonna we're gonna talk to all these practitioners, these professors, lawyers, insiders, and we're gonna ask them questions that at times are difficult or uncomfortable, and we want no fluff, no filters, and just no BS. Like, what is the deal? What is the deal with law school? What is the deal with practicing law? What is the deal with partnership track, non-partnership track? What is the deal with maybe I went to law school and I got my JD and I don't want to practice law? What are the 100+ jobs I could work into? What can I do with that knowledge? Who's seeking me out? So this podcast is going to be your resource to all that information. And that's what I like about it. And the cool thing is, throughout the podcast, you're learning about this cool tool, LawBandit, the app that allows you to be better if you do decide to be a law student. And LawBandit is the official sponsors of the Bar None podcast. So it's all coming together, Don, and I love it. I'm excited. I'm also a little sad because I wish, something like that existed when I went to law school like 5 years ago. So great on you, dude.
Likewise. No, I'm very excited to, to be a part of the podcast. And when we partnered up, as soon as we partnered up on Law Bandit, I knew that I wanted to do something with you that could get more information out to students and to just people interested in law. Just because you have like that charisma that I kind of lack. I'm a little more technical, but yeah, I think it's going to be a great journey. I think one of the things that I'm really excited about the podcast is that I think is going to be an overarching a theme is how technology and artificial intelligence and the law kind of play together. Even this summer and in law school, there's like a bit of a transition happening where these AI models they're infiltrating the system, but the legal system is it has to be correct, and so these AI models a lot of times they hallucinate, and you've seen cases where lawyers get sanctioned because they're using AI. And so I think one of the things that I want to really get out of this podcast is that I want to debunk like that AI is bad. I think it can be a great tool for students and for lawyers alike. And I really want to dive deep on that. So I think it'll be really interesting as we interview these professors, the practitioners, lawyers, and maybe some students what their take is, and they might have different takes. And sometimes they might agree with us, sometimes they might not. But I think it's going to be a very interesting part of the show. That's it's going to be unique.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, I saw Terminator 1, 2, and 3. I get it. I get it. Everybody's fearing Skynet, artificial intelligence, robots gonna take over the world, our jobs, we're gonna become obsolete, I get it. And I think it's important to debunk that and to also show that a lot of major law firms, I work for a large top 10 law firm, they're using AI. I use it every day. Like all these major players are utilizing AIs and the clients are agreeing to all of this. So realizing through this podcast that, AI is your friend, we're going to debunk a lot of things. And we're also going to educate you on how to utilize AI and to give you a leg up. So if you do decide, right, to go into the firm life, that you're already familiar with the AI tool and you're adding value automatically, not, oh, I don't want to use AI. I'm going to use pen and paper. Now you're not adapting. You're not moving with the times. You're slower. You're costing the client more money. And there's a whole ripple effect, but we're going to get to all of that in our podcast. This is the intro of all intros where you learned just a little enough about each of us. You learned a lot about Law Bandit. You learned a lot about what this podcast is about. You heard our intro. This is just the intro of all intros where we're, I guess, introducing ourselves, the hosts, before we get to
Introducing the introduction.
introducing the introduction. So thank you for listening. And that's gonna be it for this episode of Bar None. If you got something out of today's convo, later on, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a review, share. Our next episode will be out soon where we're gonna actually interview a LCOM professor, which is a writing course that every students have to take. Their 1L, one first semester, right, Adan? Yeah.
Yeah, first semester. Well, she was my second semester professor. I won't out her yet. So you guys will have to tune in the next episode to hear all about her. But she is one of my favorite professors that I've ever had, and I'm really glad that she's kicking off the show with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So tune in, guys. Thanks for keeping it real with us. No fluff, no filters, just bar none. Until next time, stay sharp and stay sane. We'll talk to you guys and we'll see you at the next episode. My name is Ted Delsima, as always, joined with
Adan Ordoñez.
Let's Get It. And we'll see you guys at the next one. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.